Assume this is on?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is William Posner. I am the president of the Homeowners Association of the Villas of Newtown. Next to me is Lisa Rader, who is our vice president. We have a 5-member board. A third one was supposed to be here, but apparently it's a little bit late. The other 2 couldn't make it. But we speak as one. We're unanimous with respect to the items I wish to talk to you about this evening. And that is, in fact, the item that, as Mr. Lewis just said, you have removed from your agenda. We became aware only this past Friday, aware for sure, we had been given some advance notice before Friday, but on Friday, we became aware when you published your agenda that you would be considering a motion to draw down financial security being held by the township in order to complete the community improvements of the villas. We felt very encouraged when we saw that on the agenda. We quickly put together a package over the weekend, which I've called a Villas of Newtown position paper, which was delivered to Mr. Lewis Monday morning, and I hope you have all, and I assume you have all gotten it and been able to take a look at it. I don't want to go, for obvious reasons, since the motion is no longer on the agenda, I'm not planning tonight to address in any detail what the problems are that are addressed in that position paper. On Monday night, we called a very quick meeting of our residents, and there wasn't a seat empty in our clubhouse when we had this meeting. And at that meeting, I let everyone know that this was on the agenda for this evening. And I shared with them the position paper, and I told them and encouraged our residents that we would be here on Wednesday night to address this issue, and that we were optimistic and hopeful that tonight might be a critical step toward the final completion of the villas, which I think I referred to early on in the position paper as the tortured development since 2006 of our community. On Monday morning, I received an email from Micah stating that the motion had been removed from your agenda simply because, and I quote from the email, "We have been notified that work on site has commenced in the area of the basin," close quote, has commenced. And he added that this would be removed from the agenda, and again I'll quote, "until we know exactly what work was done and if it was done to the satisfaction of the engineer," close quote. So it was disappointing to many of us, some of whom are here tonight, that this would be removed from tonight's agenda solely because there was the beginning of some activity, the nature and extent of which we do not know, and you apparently do not know. And this on something that should have been completed some time ago, rather than just started now. And the work that I believe Micah was referring to that just started is on the detention basin. Nothing, to the best of my knowledge, has really moved forward on any of the other items of concern to the villas that are outlined and discussed in the position paper that I gave you. We believe that it is not a coincidence at all that the activity referenced in Micah's email started on the eve of a possible drawdown of escrow by the township. We, based on the repeated assurances, promises, broken deadlines, unmet deadlines, I should say, broken promises that have been the history of our relationship with the builder, with McGrath Homes. I have no reason to believe that anything that is going on now, whatever the extent and nature of it is, would be going on if he wasn't afraid that tonight you would authorize the drawdown of security. And we query whether the work will now continue, because you've taken it off and you've left it indefinite. Maybe it'll go back on your agenda in the future, maybe it won't. And we query, have serious concerns that now that that pressure has been removed, just how far will the work go? The evidence that we have seen again and again over time tells us that McGrath will put off anything that might cause him to lay out money until he is absolutely under the gun to take action. I don't want to take up your time to repeat here what is in the position paper, but I would like to give you just a few lowlights from the past year, just the last year, because there have been promises made and promises not kept long before that period of time. Let me give you just a quick chronology, please. September 13th of 2018, a meeting took place in this building. McGrath's attorney, myself, and other board members, our attorney, Michelle Fountain. This was designed to be the meeting that would really move things forward. At that meeting, McGrath requested punch lists so that there could be an inspection to determine whether phase 1 was complete and where he stood on phase 2 of our development. He agreed to a number of deadlines. 1, sewer dedication was to be requested by 9/21/2018 and thereafter pursued diligently. 2, basin redesign plans were to be submitted by September 30th, 2018, and the work is to be completed by December 31st, 2018. Number 3, the sidewalk and fence installation is to be completed by October 31st, 2018. On October 8th, a few weeks after that September meeting, Michelle Fountain provided the punch lists that McGrath asked for with respect to phase 1 and phase 2, and asked him to work with her to determine when the inspections would take place. I don't know, as I stand here, whether those inspections ever took place. Michelle, I know, is not here. She's the only one I think who could answer that question. So I don't know if she ever met with John out at the site to go over those punch lists. And based on our history, until I hear otherwise, I'm going to assume that it wasn't done. On November 15th, 2018, a month later approximately, Michelle confirmed that she received plans from McGrath for the revision of the outlet structure, which was what he said he was going to do, a revision designed to make this basin drain more. And I'll mention something later on about what we do think has been done on that. But the problem is the basin was designed to be a detention basin, which is a basin that is supposed to hold water after a runoff event. And in this case, I've looked at the plans, 72 hours. That basin is supposed to drain, to dry, and remain dry 72 hours after a runoff event. It does not do that. And there has been, because of a lack of maintenance over this period of time, and that was the responsibility also of the builder, from my reading of from the law, he failed to maintain it, and that water level over the last few years has gradually gone higher and higher and higher. So his proposed solution, was to revise this outlet to enable the water to drain through. Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So she receives the plans for this revision work that was to have been completed by December 31st, 2018. December 31st, 2018 comes and goes. Nothing has been done. On May 8th, As a result of some email correspondence, Michelle was asked again, has anything been done out of the basin? She writes an email back confirming that no work has been done. In the meantime, our attorney, Stefan Richter, has been back and forth with Township Counsel and Alan Toadvine, who is McGrath's attorney. And finally, pardon me, I'm still fighting a bit of a cold. Finally, on July 11th, the supposedly final deadline, Mr. Sander wrote to McGrath's attorney and said, "Hi, Alan, hope all is well with you. The township is disappointed that your client has failed to complete the improvements at the villas, including, most notably, the basin. I have been authorized to review the development and financial security agreements for phases 1 and 2 and to advise the township what is required for the township to draw down the financial security and complete the improvements. This email is the township's last attempt to have your client complete the required improvements in both phases of the development before the township takes whatever actions are appropriate under the applicable agreements to draw on the financial security, complete the improvements, and collect from your client any difference between the cost to do so and the amount of the financial security. If the improvements are not completed, including inspection and sign-off by Michelle Fountain by July 31st, 2019, the township will proceed under the agreements accordingly. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation." We were thrilled. Finally, somebody was giving McGrath what appeared to be the final deadline. That deadline came and went, and it looked like you were living up to exactly what Mr. Sanders said was going to happen. It was on the agenda for tonight. And now, because we have some activity, it's off the agenda. Let me tell you a little bit about that activity, and then I think I'm finished. There, in fact, has been some work being done by CVA utility contractors. It's been going on start and stop, hit and miss for the last couple of weeks. Several days ago, Joan Bayaki, one of our...
She snuck around.
I'm sorry.
Joan Bayaki and I took a walk around the basin ourselves, and we talked to the foreman of the crew. And he was kind enough to talk to us, and I said, "What exactly are you doing here?" And what he said to me was basically the following: "We've spent the last couple of weeks pumping out the basin. And it was obvious as we were talking, the level of the water was down substantially. So I asked him, why did you have to pump it out? And he explained to me that about this orifice plate, 24 by 29, that is supposed to catch and release really overflow waters in extraordinary conditions. And that under that box, there was a 3-inch pipe. And this 3-inch pipe is designed at the appropriate flow levels that the engineers established, above my pay grade here. But this 3-inch pipe is to carry the runoff through the berm, into the woods, and into Core Creek. This pipe was completely blocked, or substantially blocked, at least to the point where water wasn't flowing through. He told me a story about how he had to remove a snapping turtle which had made its home inside this 3-inch pipe and was helping to block the water. Why, I asked, how did we get here? And the answer was, there has been no maintenance on this pond in who knows how long. And I'm sure your township engineer is far more familiar than I am with the requirements of the permittee on these stormwater basins and the obligation to maintain. So that's what's been happening there. Is that the final solution to this problem? I'm not sure, and I don't think it is, because this gentleman I spoke to said this will never be a dry basin. There will be water. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Our problem with this, and why the pressure, I would beg of you, keep the pressure on Mr. McGrath on this. He needs, as I understand this, nothing can be done to really address this problem until John McGrath says to the township engineer and the Bucks County Conservation District, I'm done. I believe that I have done everything that I am required to do under the law and in accordance with the plans. And he is required to submit as-built plans. He is then also required to seek a notice of termination from the Bucks County Conservation District to relieve him of liability for the continuing maintenance of that basin, at which point it becomes ours. It becomes our responsibility, and that's why we're concerned with it, because the way this thing seems to have ended up being designed, an engineer who I talked to recently said to me, this is going to be a maintenance nightmare for you. It is not the way it ought to be. So, what he's doing has to be finished. He has to take these steps to say I'm finished. And then, as I understand it, the township engineer and the Bucks County Conservation District has to determine whether what he says he's built jives with what he said he would build and whether it meets. And if it doesn't, he can then be directed to do whatever needs to be done to make it right. Our residents have concerns about this basin over its function, and they also have serious aesthetic concerns about the way it looks. And some people actually like the way it looks. I gotta be very honest with you. There's no unanimity of opinion. I've talked to residents all over the community. Some think it looks great. Other people think it is a ditch. One person believes that she has been unable to sell her home because of the appearance of it, that buyers have said, no, I'm not gonna buy your house because of that ditch back there. I don't know, wasn't there, so I can't vouch for that. I'm telling you what we've been told. So the bottom line for us right now is I would ask you, please do not leave this an open item. Declare tonight that this will be on the agenda on September 11th. Send that message to our builder. Okay, you've bought another 30 days approximately, but if it isn't done, and I don't mean just the basin, if that's not done, if everything you are required to do has not been completed and submitted to us, you, for approval, this motion will be heard on September the 11th. That's what I ask you, what we all ask you to do. And by the way, I would like to just give to you for your records, at our meeting the other night and shortly after that, I have the signatures of approximately 90 of our residents supporting basically what I'm telling you tonight and asking for your assistance in bringing this matter finally to a conclusion. I'm prepared to answer any questions you might have. Other than that, I'm done.
Does anyone have any questions? I think you've made your point, and hopefully moving forward, we're trying to get this problem taken care of for you. But we all know what a trickster the builder is, so we also have to monitor that. I thank you for your time and for what you have, honestly.
Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Fred DeVisa, and I'm also a resident of the Villas of Newtown. And I don't want to take much more of your time. I think Bill very thoroughly and aptly talked about our long-standing problems. I wanted to add one point, and that is that after many, many years of these broken promises and delays, most of us have been living here 8, 9, 10 years and anxiously awaiting the completion of our community. After many years of that experience, we were before this township, and despite shared concerns about loss of some open space, our HOA and the township approved McGrath's application to build 6 additional units so that he would have the added revenue that would cover the restoration of the historic farmhouse and the completion of our community. And some of you were on the board at that time, and I will say, by the way, every time we've come to the board, you've been very responsive and very helpful, and whatever action has been taken is in large respect because of the board and the help of like Micah and Kurt before him and Michelle Fountain. So we thank you for that. But in any event, so with that approval, those 6 units were built. The farmhouse was restored, and those units were sold at an approximate price of about $650,000 a unit. And we don't know all the math here, but it seems like it probably brought in revenue of about $4 million plus in terms of total dollars. McGrath has represented, he owned the land already. A lot of the engineering had already been done. A lot of the plans had already been done. So $4 million plus comes in as revenue. At that point, instead of completing even the units that he built, which are still somewhat in need of driveways and some other issues, and completing the rest of the common improvements, McGrath Homes left our community and went on to build another development. Now that simply should be unacceptable. It's not only unacceptable to us, it should be unacceptable to the township. You've been helpful. You're stakeholders in the completion of our community. You're third-party beneficiaries to our declaration, and there have been these serious problems, and frankly, we haven't heard any real explanation for any of this. It was simply a question of the units were sold, and then McGrath Homes went on to start another place before our units were ever completed and our common improvements were installed as they should have been many, many years ago. So we all share Mr. Posner's request and his concerns that now is the time for us to move together and not tolerate this type of delay and behavior any longer. It's time for whatever legal action that can legally be taken by the township. If these improvements are not made reasonably forthwith, and it's really time for us to begin to take whatever action can legally be taken. And we just urge you to do that on behalf of us and on behalf of the township. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment. I think I've been on the board for a while. I know a lot of the issues that you guys have been having. I really feel for you guys, the way things have been going with that whole development. And I want to assure you, we're going to do everything we can to try and get it taken care of. I've been having conversations with Mr. Lewis by phone and email for weeks regarding the recent issue. And I think we're doing everything we can to get it done. I want you to know we're going to keep the pressure on the way we can keep the pressure on. There are guidelines we have to follow and whatnot that we're going to follow, but I think me personally, talking to Mr. Lewis, we're going to do what we can to make sure we get it taken care of. So I just want to let you guys know that, especially so some people in the audience that I know, that I don't want to be totally silent. So we understand what you're going through, and we'll do what we can. So thank you.
Well, I guess being the other member that has been on the board for this whole length of this debacle, you really know that I have never been a big fan of your builder. We have tried numerous times to hold his feet to the fire, but again, somehow he tries to weasel his way out of certain situations. We can't control his checkbook, so we don't know what he did with the money. We were under the assumption, just as you, and a show of good faith, that he would take care of it. But he just kept dangling on and holding that carrot out, and everybody was waiting for him to take care of certain things of which he never did. And you're right, he just up and left, and now he's on to, I don't know, Falls Township or wherever he is. Believe me, they've been forewarned, but apparently they approved him to build over there also. So, as Mr. Davis says, we want to see this, and we've always wanted to see this complete, but this gentleman has just broken every rule possible, and he continues to break every rule possible, but he knows how to bend the rules, like Mr. Posner has said. So hopefully we will try to keep the pressure on him so he can't bend the rules, and if he tries to bend the rules, we have to make sure that he did it the correct way, and if he doesn't, then the legal action will be taken in the proper stances. So yes, we want to see the villas done. In all reality, I'm glad he's gone, because he's never really lived up to what he wanted to do. I remember when he wouldn't do the clubhouse and the pool, and we had to put pressure on him to do that. And it seems like he's doing the same thing all over again. So hopefully as time goes on, and not too much time, we can make the villas a whole, and a whole development. So that's all I have to say. Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jim Hildrew. I'm the owner of the infamous farmhouse that you all know about. So I'm in the center of all the Southgone things that are going on. Non-compliance is not confined by John McGrath to the things he promised to do, but even the HOA rules. I look across at John McGrath's house that's in the business name, and there are typically 4 and 5 cars there at most times, and the overflow goes and parks down on Lower Silver Lake. Now, today, he was going to come in and pave, and he postponed that event for a week. But what he was proposing to do by the lines that he left is expand the apron of his driveway so it will accommodate more cars. So when I look out my front door, I see all these cars from people in their 20s and 30s, guests, family members, and this is an over 55 community. So there, no respect is displayed for the residents of Vaughan. It's very sad. With regard to the retention basin, I work for a major corporation, and I've seen many basins, but I don't understand how you can have a flow line for a retention basin that's a little over 3 inches in diameter. All of the basins I've ever seen have at least pipes of 8 inches or more, and there are several constraints on the amount of flows, but by putting in a 3 or 3.5 inch line, it's designed to fail. And I don't know what the water flow designs were like and what the assumptions were that went into the calculations, but I can assure you that that's going to be a problem forever because the line is inadequate. So I would invite you to take a careful look at the design of the basin, and my suggestion would be to put an 8 inch line in there and use the other means of controlling flows to your satisfaction. But by putting in a 3 or 3.5 inch line, it will be a constant problem with blockage. So that's all I have to offer. It's not just a question of the items that are unfinished, but the indifference to the requirements of the HOA that it's an over 55 community, and a business property being used for personal use is not a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.